Hi and welcome back to my channel. My name is Win. Today's video is probably the most ambitious in terms of trying to splice together a couple of video clips and photos that I have. I got this tattoo, as you will know if you saw my last video, which was a little sneak peek of half of it, on Monday. So if we count that day as day one, I've had my tattoo for 7 days now. Although technically tomorrow, because I'm filming this on Sunday, will be the week's anniversary of me getting it. I've been taking photos every day. I've filmed a couple of times, not just for this video, but also so that I can kind of keep an eye on the progress. I don't know until I watch this back how well you'll be able to kind of see. If I just zoom in a little bit, it started to kind of peel a bit, which is fun. And for those of you that aren't especially au fait with the whole tattoo shebang, peeling, itching is natural. So yeah, it looks interesting at the moment. Although, to be honest, better than it did this morning. I've moisturised it a couple of times since I woke up, so it's all good. So yeah, I'm now going to insert some clippage and photos, and then next time you see me, present me, during the time that I'm filming this video, I will tell you about the meaning of this tattoo, why I got it, and all of that fun stuff. I'm getting a tattoo today! Ah! I'm crinkling because I've had to wrap it up again, hoping it will stay on, and I can't bend forward because of the masking tape pulling against my flesh, so that's nice. I don't have to wrap it again after today, so that's good. Yay! We can have a fun time sleeping tonight. Okay, back to black lipstick wearing me. This tattoo, as you can see, sorry, that was my foot making a weird creaky noise on the floor. It's probably not very healthy. It says, "'Tis the fairy lady of Shalott," and that is a Tennyson quote. See, I can zoom in the camera, but in order to do that I have to put my fingers on the screen, and it's just a faff. As I've said before, I'm not currently in a position really to invest in a proper camera, and YouTube is not. Whilst I do enjoy doing it and I want to keep doing it for the foreseeable future, it's not something that I could see myself making a living from. So right now it's not, I don't think it'd be cost effective for me to invest in a camera, but you know, we'll see. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. This setup seems to work well enough. Here I have The Lady of Shalott by Lord Alfred Tennyson, or indeed Alfred Lord Tennyson. I also have a treasure of his. This copy is a little bit battered because I bought it from the charity bookshop that I work at. was only £1.49, but I don't mind. I prefer older books, honestly, because they just smell so nice and you are literally holding a piece of history. Yeah, this is in it, Lady of Shalott as well, but I am the sort of person that has favourite poems, and if at all possible, I would love to own all of my favourite poems in single volumes. Don't know, it just feels so much more special. This one is particularly special because of the illustrations. I could be wrong, but I think one of them maybe like wood carvings, or based on, I'm not entirely sure. It's also written in this recently discovered pretty rare English font called Dove's Type, and as you can see, I don't know if you can see, my tattoo is in Dove's Type. I chose this font because, well, I have had this book for many years now, and I just think, I mean, it's a typewriter-esque font, and when it comes to script/lettering tattoos, it's by and large recommended that you should go for a bolder font if you want it to last longer, and a typewriter font has much bolder lines than a kind of a flowy floral thing that a lot of people get for their script tattoos. But you know, I wanted to kind of change it up a bit to be of special significance to me. So the text is meaningful as well as the words themselves. I remember when I booked the tattoo, I took this book in with me, and the woman at the desk said it was a storybook font, and that made me so happy. Pretty sure if you've been on my channel long enough, you'll know how much I love mythology and fantasy. I'm also a massive fan of fairy tales. That I suppose there's like an innocent part of me that still secretly loves them, and I don't think it's silly for an adult to love fairy tales. I think storytelling, especially in a fantasy shape or form, is very important. And I'm not embarrassed at all to say that I love fairy tales, to say that I love mythology, to say that mermaids make me happy, that dolls make me happy, because again, I think it's just like reclaiming one's childhood, that kind of innocence, but at the same time, fantasy, as you'll know if you've watched, well, effectively any of my videos, because for those of you who don't know, I'm a theology student. I'm always thinking about the human meaning within stories, the plots of films, as well as books themselves. And there's often a dark edge, a cautionary tale element to fairy tales, but I think that's important, and I think, you know, it's hard enough for us to deal with the darkness in this world and the failings of our society and humankind, and I know that sounds really bleak, but I think it's healthy and it's important that we're able to explore these things in a safe way. And for me, one of the best ways in which we can do that is through storytelling, is through fantasy escapism. For those of you that do not know, and I realise that might be quite a few of you, but that's fine, I realise it's quite obscure for like a 20-year-old to be into classical poetry. It is about a woman who is trapped in a tower. And yes, there are going to be spoilers throughout this video, and I think that the fact that I'm going to be including said spoilers is important in terms of talking about the meaning behind my tattoo. Woman trapped in a tower, each and every day she weaves on her loom, and what she weaves is what she sees in a mirror. Behind my camera I have this amazing mirror that used to be like, it used to be a door, and for me it just looks so pre-Raphaelite and medieval. I might actually do another clip, because what I do is I take separate video clips and I'll put them together so that I can show you the mirror. And the mirror in question actually belonged to my parents. It used to be in their old they used to be in their room, and then they got a new wardrobe with mirrors on it, so they didn't need it anymore, and obviously I had to have it. She is only allowed to look in this mirror, which is a mirror into the outside world, but of course she only sees what the mirror wants her to see. And I think that's one of the things that quite bigly links to my experience with reality, dissociation, and depersonalization. One of the symptoms of my dissociation, and by the way I will link resources from Mind down in the description that explain what dissociation and depersonalization are. So if you don't know, don't worry, but I think some of the things I'll be talking about will probably make sense the more you listen and the more I say. One of the symptoms of me becoming increasingly disconnected from myself is that I feel even more separated from my own reflection, as I usually do. Obviously there's a mirror between you and your reflection, and we all know that what you see in the mirror isn't what other people see. And I'm particularly fascinated about how I forget what the name of the phenomenon is, but there is a I'm sure I've said before, sorry, I'm quite today as usual. There's a phenomenon in which occurs often when people do the Bloody Mary ritual or something like it, when you stare at your reflection in a mirror with the lights off and just a candle, and you think that you see this ghost, this demon figure, but what you're actually seeing is a distortion of your own face. There are so many different phenomenons that have been scientifically researched, something like the ideomotor effect, which is what causes an Ouija board to work. You don't know that you're moving the pieces, the planchette or whatever it's called, but you are. Like, it's an unconscious psychological thing that happens. The mind is a very powerful thing, but it can also be quite scary because it can scare us. Sorry, it can be scary because it can scare us. No, it can be quite scary because it can be easily deceived. And I feel like when I'm very dissociated, very disconnected from me, there's like a film between me and the mirror. I feel too far away and I can't quite reach the reality, what's really going on with me in my life. So the whole symbol, the mirror, what that represents is so fascinating, but also I think quite personal to me, and that's something that I've discovered recently, really. I've had a couple of really brilliant counselling sessions. I mean, my counselling is always wonderful. I'm not going to name my counsellor, but I might send her this video. All of the work that I've done with her has been so wonderful for me, but I've had a couple of sessions just recently in which I've had some pretty amazing revelations about why I am drawn to certain things because of what they have come to mean for me because of my experience of my mental health and reality. And this poem, it makes so much, like, the reason why I'm drawn to it, I think, is even more apparent as I've got older and as I've become to understand more of what it means to be me. I mean, I'm still not there yet, but I'm trying. The woman in the tower, she's somewhat of a legendary figure. In the introduction of this edition, which I believe you can buy on Amazon. I think I mentioned in my sustainable fashion video that I'm trying not to buy from Amazon as often anymore because of the packaging and the questionable tax related issues. So I will try and find some other sellers, but I think this one was from Amazon. As an introduction from an academic who talks about the "'tis the fairy lady of Shalott," which is the line that I have on me. The fact that she is seen as this mysterious figure. If I can show you the page that it's from, the farmers in the field hear her singing and they whisper, "'Tis the fairy lady of Shalott." They don't quite know what she is. I love that the academic in question, whose name I will put on the screen, suggests that maybe the people bring her offerings because they maybe think she's a goddess, this magical woman. They know that she's there, they can hear that she's there, but there is such a mystery surrounding her. I love that about the story because it is so magical, but I think also sad in a way because she is lost, she is trapped. She has a purpose which is to be constantly weaving, but it almost makes me think of like the tasks that let's say inmates, let's be honest, the prisoners in 1984 have to perform every day. These tasks don't achieve anything, but it is just keeping that kind of, well, maintaining the entrapment, the suppression of these people, and it feels like, you know, there's no end goal for her. She doesn't have anybody. She knows, and it says earlier in the poem, she knows that she's cursed, but she doesn't know what that curse is, why she has it. She is in fact cursed to die if she leaves the tower. If even she looks at the window, which is quite close to the mirror, somehow, for however many years she's been in the tower, she's managed never to look at the mirror, never to look at the window rather. But she does one day because she falls for Lancelot. Lancelot, of course, the character in Arthurian legend. This is one of a couple of poems that Tennyson wrote, I believe, based on characters from Arthurian legend. And this takes place on an island, the island of Shalott. And no, it isn't onions. As you can see, I have not spelled Shalott incorrectly by accident. I have spelt it in accordance with the title of this poem. She is not the Lady of Onions, she's the lady of this little island, which is very close to Camelot, where of course Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table dwelled. So yeah, there is an element of a, I suppose, pretty formulaic love story there because she falls for a man, and I've said before, I'm gay. Like, ordinarily the very often heterosexualness of stories can bother me, but that's usually, you know, because there isn't enough representation for people like me, but that is often, when it comes to modern media. But when you're reading stories and you're watching films that came about long ago, particularly in the case of this poem, long ago, you would be well within your right to call this poem old, because I believe it's 1800s. Yes, I know it's 1800s. I'm sorry. I will put the date up on the screen. But even then, it's not as old as the English Civil War period, which is my favourite period of history. Don't know if I mentioned that before, but thank you, my history A level. But I'm not disappointed at that, because that tiny little element, I think, is not on the same level as any of the other themes and symbols within the poem. So I realise somebody coming into this, beginning to read it and then realising that it's another kind of romantic epic, might be a little bit disheartened by that, but I promise that is not, yeah, I mean, in a way, it's sad that it's a man that is the reason, well, a man that plays into the reality of her death, but I don't think she's just doing it for him. You know, she wants to escape, she wants to have a reason to escape this awful life. I mean, yeah, even though she seems content, we're told she weaveth steadily. She knows that she's cursed, but she's like, yeah, whatever, I've got this job to do. But I doubt she's completely happy. I mean, we know that she isn't, because she wants to look out of the window, she wants to leave the tower. It's almost like she's been planning this, like this boat is at the edge of her island. She has just the right tools to carve her name into it. She almost has a plan, like she's been thinking about this. I am going to read a little bit of the poem. I know like half of the first stanza, it is a long flipping poem, but the language is absolutely beautiful. So this is the little stanza that has the line that I got tattooed, and I will explain more of why I chose that line, and then I will read about the curse. Only reapers reaping early in among the bearded barley hear a song that echoes cheerly from the river winding clearly down to towers Camelot. And by the moon the reaper weary, piling sheaves in uplands airy, listening whispers, 'tis the fairy Lady of Shalott. So I chose that little line at the end. There is like an apostrophe at the beginning. Sorry. Yes, there. There is an apostrophe at the beginning because that is grammatically correct. But I haven't done the speech marks. But there are speech marks in this, obviously. I chose this line because it maintains the mystery of the poem that I spoke about not long ago. Also because the inclusion of the word fairy links to my love of mythology, and I think speaks to that magic that I do believe is within all of us. And I know that sounds a little bit cheesy, but I do think we all have a spark, and despite everything that I've been through, and no, I'm not trying to compare my experiences to anybody else's. I'm not trying to say that I suffer more, that would be ridiculous, but I can only know my experiences. But despite all of that, I still know that there is hope, and I think hope is real magic. I know that that sounds cheesy, but I do believe fundamentally that things will get better. Sometimes it is difficult to remember that, of course, but this is a reminder that I now have on my body. 'Tis the fairy lady of Shalott. Who is the fairy? Am I the fairy? Is she a fairy? I love that too. I think also it's a little bit sad because so the cover of this is one of 3 paintings that the pre-Raphaelite painter, sorry I've just got pins and needles in my foot, I sit in the oddest positions and then I'm surprised and can't feel my feet, right. John William Waterhouse, the pre-Raphaelite painter. I love the pre-Raphaelites, I'm sure I've mentioned that before. He produced 3 paintings based on this poem. This is the most famous, if not one of the most famous pre-Raphaelite paintings, probably after, for some people, Millet's Ophelia. Those are probably the 2 most famous pre-Raphaelite works of art. We do not know the name of this woman, or at least I've not been able to find it. Waterhouse famously used his sister, his wife and other family members as models. But some of these women, we don't know their names. We don't know who they were as women. We don't know their backgrounds, their lives. But I think it's quite ironic in a way. It is likely that these women were exploited to an extent because they were often posing nude for male artists. And a number of painters had affairs with their models. And of course, unfortunately, we don't know how consensual these relations always were. But I think it's ironic that despite all of that, despite the patriarchal elements there, the face of this woman, the face of pre-Raphaelite women alike, they are remembered often more than the painters, more than those that actually gave that life. But of course, without the women, they wouldn't have been famous. They wouldn't have been able to produce these amazing works of art. But people don't always remember the names, but they remember the face. They remember looking at the painting and what that made them feel. This is not my favourite pre-Raphaelite painting. I would have to say probably my favourite would be Beata Beatrix by Rossetti, but this is probably the first that I saw because of the poem. I first heard this poem, my mum read it to me, but also I've always said that we had like a tape that read it out, but my mum doesn't remember that. I vaguely remember listening to it a couple of times when I was ill. I just found it absolutely enchanting. I'd never really been like big on poetry. I had a couple of like kids' poetry books and I would read them, but I think it's because few kids' poems have that fantastical element, which I really love. There was just always something about the Lady of Shalott. Even though it's dark, even though we're told in great detail about how her blood freezes as she's dying, which is awful and it's supremely sad. I loved it as a child. I don't think that means that I was like, I wasn't a particularly grim child. I know, given like the look that I go for when it comes to my makeup and my clothes, although perhaps less so today because I have donned lilac, and the films that I love, it may come as a surprise that I was not a devilish child. I mean, I don't know, it does. The people that know me, I think probably wouldn't be surprised to hear that. But I did have quite a sheltered childhood. My parents deal with anxiety as well, and yeah, they were just careful, and they're still careful, and I am grateful that they kept me safe, of course. But they were also very careful about the media that I consumed. I did not watch horror films growing up. I did not. My obsession with classic horror, I've said before, kind of began when I was like 13, and then I had a couple of years where I was obsessed with everything to do with vampires. But you know, my mum wasn't particularly accepting of this, and you know, I come from a Christian family, and my parents certainly used to be an awful lot more traditional than they are now. But I liked this poem from a very innocent perspective. I can assure you. I'm going to read some more. I hope you don't mind. I would love to do some poetry reading for you if that's something you'd be interested in. I realise it's not very like horror orientated, but you know, we do have a bit of variation on this channel. One of the most famous lines in this poem, I'm not going to read out that stanza, is "I'm half sick of shadows," which is probably the quote that people do tend to get if they're getting a line from this poem. Okay, I've got it. Okay. So this is after she's seen Lancelot. She left the web, she left the loom, she made 3 paces through the room. She saw the water lily plume, she saw the helmet, she saw the water lily bloom, she saw the helmet and the plume. She looked down to Camelot. Out flew the web and floated wide, the mirror cracked from side to side. The curse is come upon me, cried the Lady of Shalott. The mirror cracked from side to side. It's the name of an Agatha Christie novel, but it is, again, probably one of the most famous lines from this poem, in case you wonder where that came from. The mirror cracked from side to side is Tennyson, The Lady of Shalott. There's just this little image at the end of the poem after she's died. I think, for me, because of the link to the pre-Raphaelites, also because of the link to water, I'm very big on aquatic mythology, which is what I call it, because of that sort of duality that watery myths and water can often represent, kind of a blurring of worlds. The water is amazing. Something that somebody pointed out, I think it was in like a video done by the Tate Britain YouTube channel. There's a little crucifix on the boat, which I think is really nice. Obviously the red and the crucifix, it's all kind of overshadowing her death. And of course there are references to lilies throughout this poem, and lilies can be the flowers that herald grief. So there's that element, but also I think, in a way, through the things that I read and the research that I do and the reflecting that I do on why I love these paintings, because I do think of the paintings when I read and look at this poem, not least because of the work that Waterhouse did, but because of it was of that era, you know. And I think it's partly about almost reclaiming some of these women, as I said, the models. I don't know, perhaps one day I will talk about Elizabeth Siddal. I've always said Siddal. I know it could be Siddal, but you know, she's not here anymore, so I don't think it matters that much. I don't know. She was the model for Ophelia. Yeah, I know it sounds like I'm going off on a tangent, but for me these things are linked very closely in terms of the things that I love. Yeah, I think I've said all I want to say about the meaning. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head. I hope that makes sense. In terms of the placement, I chose this because, well, it's on my collarbone, but when I'm wearing a high neck t-shirt, like a unisex t-shirt, I can hide it pretty easily. I do have more kind of like off the shoulder things now. I mean, this is only like off the shoulder at the moment to sort of show you. I mean, this isn't particularly tight fabric, so that's fine. But yeah, I feel like I can hide it well. It's also in quite, well, an ordinarily painful bony area, but it's not going to hopefully change shape very much as I get older. I do want to have children in the future, so I am conscious about not getting anything tattooed like on my feet or my ankles because they change up when you get pregnant, and obviously not like my stomach because obviously that changes shape when you get pregnant. I like with my rook piercing, I don't know, you can see that. I decided that after I got a collarbone tattoo, because it's quite a bony area, that I could get a tattoo in any other area. I mean, obviously, I'm never going to get anything like my head or the palms of my hands, or my derriere, which apparently bottom tattoos are said to be some of the most painful. I'm not going to do that, but I'm not worried about getting something like on my arm now. But even then, I didn't think I had a particularly high tolerance for pain, but it really wasn't that bad. I feel like I watched a lot of videos when I was doing my research in which people just said, you know, if you want it, go for it. And I definitely feel that way with my piercings as well. I only have 2 cartilage piercings at the moment because I've experienced rejection and migration, unfortunately, so I had to take another 2 out a while ago, but I have had full cartilage piercings. I wanted all of them, despite the pain, and, you know, my rook was absolutely the worst. I probably wouldn't get it again, as much as I love it, if I had to take it out for whatever reason. But what motivated me was that I knew that I wanted it, and somebody told me recently, if I send this video to her and she watches it, she'll know who she is, that very rarely do we do things entirely for ourselves. This tattoo, my piercings, I'm doing them entirely for me, and they're special to me. I don't really care that other people won't like them. They are things that I can hide, and I know that society, whilst things are changing, I know that things like piercings and tattoos can affect employment, and that people do judge you, but, you know, people are always going to judge. I am quite a sensitive little flower. I do get quite easily offended sometimes, but I'm trying to come to terms with the fact that I shouldn't worry about what other people think, and I'm not embarrassed showing this off, this tattoo. I'm not embarrassed walking around with a black lipstick on because it is me. So the point is, you don't have to justify these things to anybody if you don't want to. My tattoos, a rule, my plan is to have them all in kind of black line work, and until I'm kind of settled in employment, I probably won't get like anything on like my wrist or my arms, just in case. I have employers that are funny about things like tattoos, and they shouldn't be, but I respect that they, you know, if you're the head of a company or a shop or whatever, that is your prerogative, you know. But the moment I'm getting them in sort of hidden areas, and I've completely lost my train of thought now. Yes, I do not think that tattoos have to mean something. For me, all of mine will. All of mine are going to be multi-dimensional when it comes to the meaning, and if that is something that people are interested in, then do let me know. In the comments, I definitely have more planned, and like any form of body modification, tattoos are addictive. I knew that before I even booked my tattoo. I knew that. But yeah, tattoos don't have to mean anything, and even if they don't, your decision to get that can still be one of the things that makes you you and represents how you want to express yourself in the eyes of other people. Yeah, I don't know. I realised that people might have more questions about kind of pain and healing and all sorts. I'm not going to tell you where I got it done, just because I want to protect my location. But anything about like the pain, I also don't want to like talk about the price, because and I'm not saying that if you do a video about anything and talk about the price that you're somehow boasting. I just don't want to talk about that. But anything to do with the pain or the healing, or anything more about the meaning behind my tattoo, or the things that I've talked about, do let me know in the comments. I'd be happy to answer those questions. Indeed, if I got enough questions, and I don't know how many I'm going to get, then I would consider doing my first Q&A. I'd love to do kind of a horror Q&A first and foremost, probably, but you know, it depends what happens. But yeah, I'm very happy with my tattoo. I feel like I'm discovering more and more meaning attached to it for me each and every day. I feel very lucky, because I think gradually I'm settling more into my skin. I know that I'm not totally there yet, but that's okay. Yeah, so I think for the moment I've said everything I want to say, aside from the fact that I'm ever so grateful to everyone who engages with my videos in any shape or form, like, comment, subscribe, whatever you want to do. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for listening to me kind of witter on a little bit, and yeah, I will see you next Sunday with my usual Cushing content. Thank you so much for watching, and have an absolutely wonderful day. Bye!